Good afternoon, Abbotsford residents. I'm Mr. Pelican. I'm running for your Commander-in-Chief here in Abbotsford to remove the organized criminal ring that laid in Abbotsford. You can see now, thanks to Henry Braun's own son, Darren Braun, on the power he wielded in Abbotsford and the mob that led Abbotsford. But I want to begin today's story by telling you this. I'm going to use my wisdom and knowledge and all the training that I had from big developers. I made it clear, from Wall Financial, Aquilini, Mike Dakota, here in Abbotsford, to help my residents, but to go after the organized crime. The Abbotsford APD Police Department was doing Henry's bidding and running people out of town and shutting their mouth in order to keep Henry's game going and his scamming, setting up developers, lobbying the official community plan for him and his friends. And you saw it when I showed you how council were in his house. That's how he was winning the decisions over the general public, as he set up them plans Darren Brown showed you. And I showed you the other day Patricia Driessen, the director of Archway, and why Archway ain't being blasted and why Archway ain't hauled into coals. When Henry knew that he could use the media and manipulation through Vicky Hopes, Tyler Olson, the Abbotsford News that he brought online to scandal people, and that he could pull the people in and say, oh, these attacks on the homeless were bad. Today, I want to show you with the new Abbotsford shelter being shut down to 50 beds, and Vicky Hope saying that David EBY did it. It was Ross Siemens that did it. And you can see Vicky Hope's protecting Ross because Henry needs to run him again to get that official community plan. We won't damage Ross for all the rocks he hauled there on Gladys Avenue. We won't damage him for the homeless problem. Ross doesn't come out and make any speeches for the mayorship. You can see that. He let the Abbotsford police take the whole thing on their face. He didn't stand up for nothing. This is a man that knocked his gas station down, took it to Mission and dumped it in the aquifer. This is a man that knocked houses down the mountain when he was the deputy mayor and said my GST was more important than Abbotsford families and homeowners. There is thing as high density, and we look for that to drive our communities, and we can't stop our communities from building, and we need to move forward. That also helps with your taxes. But this wasn't high density. This is low density housing building. The homeless that were kicked out by Ross Siemens not asking the Premier David EBY to hold off on that shelter, but I made it clear, I showed you. That shelter that was raised behind Walmart was to block so that the Abbotsford residents couldn't say, well, let's put it on Valley Road. Henry knew if they got it on Valley Road, all that land I got to pull out of the swamp and build, I'll never do it because the homeless are there. Perfect situation. GVRD owned it and everything else. But it was to show that if we get it up in Walmart, we could say we got temporary shelter. So you're telling me, I'm going to defend David EBY today, that David EBY decided to move into Abbotsford because the highway was important and building it in the winter when you're not allowed to build in the winter. But engineer, Rob Isaac, an engineer, will overlook at the compensation test and we'll put our finger in the ground and say, keep going, it's worth millions of dollars. It wasn't. Pulling the carpet out from under the homeless now, as we're in November the 18th at 8 degrees. It's cold. You can see the way I'm dressed. I got my hat with me, but I figured this would be a better shot with no hat. But you could see, they also putting them in harm's way. Going across this train track, they'll lose their legs and everything else. But the homeless, I understood from the spokespeople today, they said, you know, the one behind Walmart shut down and we were going there with extra food and a lot of people came there because they knew that was the feeding grounds now. And now they're scattered everywhere. And poor Ross Siemens can't take a hit. And Patricia Driessen, what she do? Sits on Archway and she votes Archway to have $35K for domestic violence in Abbotsford when it's the second lowest. And she knew the money Archway raised. She didn't stand up and say, well, Archway embezzled all that money from them farmers on them flood victims that Brad Viss keeps screaming, the floods, the floods, the floods. The only man humiliating himself and couldn't take some of his lavish real estate and sell it off for the homeless. No, he was going to try to push the province to get more money. No, oh, the food bank closed, the food bank closed, the food bank robbed San Diego. I'm going to change that as your mayor. I'm going to use my experience. I'm going to bring a team in, but the first thing we're going to do is forensic audit and go after these things that were enriching Henry and his friends, and we're going to get your city back. We're going to give you a place where freedom comes, and also we're also going to give you a place where we can get the news out, and it's not going to be blackjack like Vicky Hopes and her Abbotsford Drag was doing. And you can clearly see the way she blocked me in the election, the way she scandaled with her newspaper. You could see the protection and the ring around Ross Siemens, even to attack David Eby. There's nothing to do with David Eby. David Eby's in Victoria, and David Eby needs to be informed by his mayors that this here, the homeless went between the train tracks to live now, because that's federal property, and they said the mayor can't chase them around. And look at them. We don't need, this is low density. All they need is a few nails and plywood, and they can retrofit their shelters faster than anybody else. This was a scam job by Henry Braun, turning Abbotsford into the downtown east side and enriching Rob San Diego and his team that, oh, lest we speak. And you can see now, if you ask everybody, where are the activists when the chicken manure happened and Bruce Bamman stood up as our mayor and took the responsibility and the ownership as mayor, was humiliated, but addressed the problem of who was going behind his back. Henry was running this town, and he was running roughshod on this town, and he owned this town, and it was a mob, a complete mob. Ed Fast, Mike DeYoung, he was blocking elections, loading in people, and you could see it. And where is the scandal on Patricia Driessen by Vicky Hopes? She's got her mouth shut. She knows there's a conflict of interest. She knows she's not allowed to be on all these boards. She knew that when Chilliwack's Nicole was in here from the city council, and she knows that. She knew all this. She knew the economic development team wasn't, and the tourism board that was planned with Peter Sparanese. She knew this. I know this from great experiences. What a conflict of interest does, and what perks can ward you. Patricia Driessen was only on that company, and I can elaborate, but I won't do it today on this one. I'll do it on another podcast. But today I am going to give my premier, or our premier, the benefit of the doubt, even over my best friend John Rustad, and say he was blindsided by this crap of Ross Siemens. And he was blindsided, and I bet you Henry's working the phone, please David Eby, that $500 million and all this money. And we got to look at what Henry was doing, and we must go after it, because what should have been done for our homeless is put that on Valley Road and shut that down. As your mayor, I'm going to get these tasks done. There's going to be a special task force created, and that's why I lobbied to have the RCMP in, how these homeless are flooding in, what city they're coming for, and who's flooding them into Abbotsford. We're not going to allow them to set up for months and months and months and basically have status that, you know, I'm here, now I set up, and I've been here for 6 months, and you kicked me out, I built my home. We're going to make sure that our bylaw goes out there and address it with the people that look after homeless, not Rob San Diego, and say, you can't be here, it's an endangerment, we need to get you to proper shelters, and we're going to see if our shelters are overrun or our shelters are not, but we're going to change that. Pierre Poilievre said it the best. These people that run these non-profits organizations are making millions of dollars, and Rob San Diego's tonight rubbing his hands of how much money I got from Patricia Driessen, and this man going around getting them orange tarps and their heat blankets off the job site, because you can see them orange tarps wider out in this environment right now. They're heat blankets for our concrete pours so the concrete don't collapse and explode from the cold. So he built his shelters between the federal property and the train track. And where is my police chief? Where is he? Let me tell you where he was. When Mike Sir was here, he ran up time cards constantly with his guys chasing the homeless, and one phone call from me to bring the CP police in, and they did the job. So I'm going to ask Patricia Driessen today, is this what you, Ross Siemens, and Dave Lowens call here for the homeless, right? You call this, instead of high density, you call this low density housing. Nobody stood up for them. It was grab this money in from the province. Let's blame David Eby that he's expanding the highway in the middle of the winter when ice and snow come and all this, and you can't do any road work. We won't have anything else set up, and we'll grab it. Now what comes? City bureaucrats told me today they'll be rushing that one on Gladys Avenue where Ross put all the rocks. There won't be proper inspections because we're embarrassed, and we really need to push. We don't need to push. It took less than 2 days to haul that homeless shelter down. And I told you that when I did the World Olympics, I saw Brickco, which is Triple M, I saw William Scotsman, I saw all these people, how they can put these shelters in. This calls for our activists. It's a human rights violation, unbelievable, putting them out in the cold. But I won't want to give an opening so my BC Conservatives can attack David Eby, because I want to be a fair, just mayor and work with everybody. I don't want to do what Alex Mitchell did at the Chamber of Commerce. I don't want to be that kind of person. I don't want to go and say, oh, well, we got to support Mike DeYoung for the federal nomination. We got to get behind Mike to win, to beat Suk Mangel. You're supposed to be transparency, you're supposed to be evident, and you're supposed to be neutral. That I want to do with my premiers. I want to do that if it's the NDP, I want to do if it's the Liberals or the Conservatives or whoever's in that office in Victoria. If it's BC1, I want to do it. But I want to make sure today that where this blame lies, solely on Ross Siemens, and you can see Vicky Hopes, Henry's telling her, don't scandal. Today, my people, and people yesterday saw Ross Siemens driving through all these areas, and he's probably taking pictures and sending it back to Henry. Henry, what are I supposed to say and do? You're supposed to do the right thing. You're supposed to stand up here, and that's why I stood up here to call this out, because I want to be your commander-in-chief and say no more. No more to Rob San Diego, no more to Patricia Driessen, no more to Abbotsford First that did this, no more pushing our residents around, and you that lobbied these jobs for your developers are back. Somebody asked me why Driessen did that. Let me tell you why Driessen got all them things and Henry didn't use Vicky Hopes to scandal her that she sat on all these boards. Because in the city, she passes the decision when Henry lobbied these jobs through the official community plan to help him. So in return, if she went anything, any developer job that Henry's tied to, Ron Funka Diverse, the illegal stuff that he did, Henry would scandal her, being the director of Archway, being on all these boards and benefiting, and she had no morals to stand up for the homeless. I'm live. Low density housing. Now between the train track on federal property, and I guess if you were the homeless and you were sick and tired of the Abbotsford police, because you know they got that reputation of beating people and threatening people, you take up refugee status on federal property, and you know, you look at Carney and say, now that's on the weight of Carney to protect us. And Carney would probably look at that and say, you know, this is god-awful. I'm going to pull all that flood money back out of Abbotsford that Brad Viss is trying to get live. Abbotsford, British Columbia.